Welcome to Excel 2010. Today we'll be talking about freezing panes. So you can download this file from hunkim.com in the Excel 2010 section, or you can type it up yourself. The idea here is that when we have some information such as the top 5 point scorers, Michael Jordan, Chamberlain, James, Baylor, and West, as we scroll to the right, notice how we lose track of who's who. However, if you always want to keep track of which person we're talking about, it makes sense to freeze this column. How do we do that? Click on View and go to Freeze Panes. So I'm going to freeze the first column. So when you freeze the first column, notice how there's a black line. And a black line means that you always see the first column there. And as I'm scrolling to the right, scrolling to the left, we know exactly who we're talking about. This is great. Now let me try something else interesting. What if you want to freeze the first 2 columns? I'm going to right-click column A, go to Insert, and notice how it shifts this black line to the right. In this case, we're going to right-click column B, I'm going to cut it, and then I'm going to right-click and then paste it, or Control V into column A. So let me do the same thing with column C, right-click, Control X, or cut, and then you can just press Control V in column B. And I no longer need column C. I'm going to right-click column C and I'm going to delete this column. And notice how we actually have a solid line here between column B and C. So when you move to the right, you can see the first name and the last name. This is quite interesting. Going to go to the top here, freeze panes. I'm going to unfreeze the panes, which means we're back to the way we were before, where we lose track of who we're talking about. And I'm going to try going to freeze panes. So let's try clicking on freezing panes and try this thing called freeze panes in general. When you freeze panes in general, notice how depending on where your mouse cursor was, that's where it's frozen. So as I'm scrolling down, that's where we have it frozen. And okay, so I unfroze the panes. Let's try something else here. Let's click on actually the mouse cursor in B5 and try to freeze the panes here. So go to Freeze Panes. Notice how depending on where you click on, it automatically creates a line there. So here, we're freezing the panes in this way. So you can see how whether you scroll to the right or whether you scroll down. This is quite interesting. Because now as we unfreeze these panes, I can actually click here in column, let me delete that. I can click here on column C, just the first C1, go to Freeze Panes, and see what happens. Notice how this is a faster way of doing it than the previous way, which is depending on which cell you select, you can determine where exactly you want to freeze your panes, both horizontally as well as vertically. Alright, so hopefully you have fun freezing panes and being able to clearly keep track of your information, not accidentally mixing up your information.